the center of the talk that Professor Falke is going to give to us. I think it's his most recent book, 2021, and the title is Hors phénomène, essai aux confins de la phénoménalité, published by Herman in Paris. So Professor's talk, this is what we are waiting for. So I give now is the time to listen to you, and I give you the word. Please take your time and let's enjoy the depth of a reflection that certainly will encourage us to continue our own reflection on the issues of life and death that we are facing in the present context of our common history. So thank you, Emmanuel. À vous la parole.
Merci beaucoup. Thanks a lot, dear Joao. Thanks to have invited me for this conference. I'm very happy to speak to John, with John too. So I did the choice to speak in English. Before I think more people will wait. I don't see me. Yeah, I think that more people can understand what I want to say. So I will speak about the question of the crisis, which is exactly the question of gallery. That's better. Which is exactly the question of the conference. And I will speak about my last book, just published a few weeks ago, 1 month ago, which is in French, I don't see, Hors phénomène, essai aux confins de la phénoménalité. So it's a book about the limits of phenomenology and traumatism. This book belongs to a new triptych, not a triptych in medieval philosophy or a triptych in philosophy of origin, but a triptych in phenomenology. A book about the loving struggle was the first volume. It is the second one about the question of traumatism in psychism, and I'm thinking about a third one about the question of the body. So in fact, I wrote that book during the pandemic, but I began to write it a few years ago. So it's a thinking, I developed things a long time. And what I want to say first is the fact that when an event falls on me, and during all my explanation, I develop 5 sort of experience or 5 sort of event. Maladie, séparation, mort d'un enfant, catastrophe naturelle, pandémie. I said it in French first. So illness, separation, death of a child, disabled, natural catastrophe, and pandemic. And I try to explain in this book that when this sort of trauma happened to me, the trauma is such, even the pandemic, but it's not exactly the same than for illness, separation, death of a child. For example, this trauma will break the phenomenalizing subject and the phenomenalized origin. It means that, for example, if I have an illness or a cancer, of if I lost a child, it didn't happen to me, but one of my child was near to leave that. Or even in the case of a separation in a couple, I do not exist anymore. And when I say that I do not exist anymore, in a case of crisis, and perhaps from somebody, the pandemic is such, the subject is quasi broken, not completely broken, and there is no more a reason for something happened to me. In that way, I explain that what I call the extra phenomenon is no more an infra phenomenon or a supra-phenomenon. And what I try to explain, that we forget the extra phenomenon, what Gilles Deleuze called the outside, le dehors, because in phenomenology, since Husserl, Heidegger, Merleau-Ponty, for me, Husserl, Heidegger, and Merleau-Ponty are philosophers of the infra-phenomenon, or since Marion, Lévinas, Lacoste, Henry, we forget what a trauma means, a crisis. For example, what is an infra-phenomenon? Something is infra-phenomenal if you are thinking that something is preparing the phenomenon. It is the case in Husserl when he's speaking about the consciousness flow, even if in Husserl the consciousness flow always remaining. It is the case with Heidegger when he's speaking about the withdrawal of phénomène, le retrait du phénomène, but we need the phenomenologist for something happen. And it is a case of Merleau-Ponty when he's speaking about the word of life after Husserl. The word of life remains, but you need a word of life for something appear. So in that case, I can always welcome the phenomenon. And in French phenomenology, I always can welcome the phenomenon, but the phenomenon is coming up to me. It is not the infra-phenomenon, like in Husserl, Heidegger, and Merleau-Ponty, but it is what I call the supra-phenomenon. For example, the givenness in Marion, the face in Lévinas, the event in Romano, the auto-affection in Merleau-Ponty, the liturgy in Lacoste, and so on. And in French phenomenology, after what we call the theological turn, the subject remains, but he receives something, he receives a phenomenon, but he is completely débordé by the phenomenon. But the question is, for me, is there something, is not there something which is too irenic in phenomenology, in the infra-phenomenon and the supra-phenomenon? Because in the infra-phenomenon, you always presuppose that some things will happen and that you can live something, you can have an experience, a lived experience. And in the case of supra-phenomenon, you always presuppose that something will happen, even if it will, you will be devoured by it. So, my suggestion in that book, my thesis in that book, is to say that there is something too irenic in contemporary philosophy, and that in the case of the extra phenomenon, the trauma will break the subject, not completely, but will break the subject. It will break the phenomenalizing subject and will break the phenomenalized horizon. It means, and perhaps some of you live that, it means that, for example, if you lost a child in an accident, if you have an illness as a cancer, if you have been separated with your wife or your husband, it falls on you. The beginning of the book is, in French, ça me tombe dessus. Bing, ça me tombe dessus. And what's happened when such a phenomenon falls on me? No more phenomenon can appear. It means that there is a sort of phenomenon, which is the trauma, which break the possibility of any phenomenon. It is a phenomenon which break the transcendental structure of human being, and in that way, nothing can happen to me And when I said that nothing can happen to me after the death of my child, when I said that nothing can happen to me after the separation with my wife or my husband, when I say that nothing can happen to me if I have an illness, a cancer, when I think that nothing can happen to me in the pandemic situation, after a natural catastrophe and so on, it means that nothing can happen to me, not because it is a worst thing that happened to me, but because the conditions for something happened are definitively broken. That's why there is no more event, because there is no more capacity for an event for me. In that way, and that is the second point after the definition of the extra phenomenon between the infra phenomenon and the extra phenomenon and the supra phenomenon, and the 5 examples. I am always speaking about those 5 examples: illness, separation, death of a child, natural catastrophe, and pandemic. In that way, and it is the second chapter to speak about the crisis. It is to say that we can't speak anymore about given or givenness, because the extra phenomenon is outside of givenness, hors don, or outside of given, and outside of meaning, hors signification. In that way, in the case of a trauma, exactly what we are living. We are in Zoom, so it's good to be in video conference, and welcome to all of us. Okay, but what does it mean, this situation? This situation means that something has been broken, and we try to invent something new. And in my mind, there are 5 a priori of phenomenology. I spoke before in my Triduum Philosophicum about the a priori of the witness on force, of strength, the a priori of meaning on chaos, the a priori of la chair, of flesh on body. But here, the 5 a priori of phenomenality in the case of crisis are: first, the a priori of phenomenality, as if always something could appear, because something prepare what will have to appear. It is the infraphenomenon, for example, the withdrawal in Heidegger, or the world of life in Merleau-Ponty, or something will appear or can appear because it's bring on me, and I can receive something even if I can't receive anything, all the things. So first, the a priori of phenomenality, then the a priori of meaning, as if always something can, we always need something which can mean something in phenomenology and in hermeneutics too. Even when we are speaking about the silent experience in Husserl, and you know that the silent experience, l'expérience muette, is very important today for my generation of philosophers in France. It is in the paragraph 16 of the Cartesian meditation, when Husserl is speaking about the silent experience, l'expérience muette, but Husserl is saying that we are waiting for the silent experience, or the mute experience, will come to its own meaning. Nous attendons que l'expérience muette puisse parvenir à son propre sens. So there is a meaning of the mute experience. And for me, there is no more meaning of the mute experience. Because in the case of a trauma, we can't say anything. We can't say anything because it is a sort of mystery. We can't say anything because the possibility to say is definitively broke. So the a priori of phenomenality, the a priori of meaning, the a priori of opening, we'll speak about it, because we are always thinking that that I am always open to something. I have to be open to the event. And even Henri Maldinet, so I don't know if you know Henri Maldinet, but many French philosophers are speaking now and writing on Maldinet, and me too in that book. Henri Maldinet, who worked in psychiatry too, and he is a sort of disciple of Heidegger. But Henri Maldinet spoke about the psychosis, all the psychosis, and for example, the melancholia, the mania, and the schizophrenia. But when Henri Maldinet is speaking about melancholia in the past, because something is blocked, the horizon is blocked in the past. When Henri Maldinet is speaking about the mania, because something is blocked in the present. And when Henri Maldinet is speaking about the schizophrenia, because something is blocked in the future. So you have the melancholia in the past, the mania in the present, and the schizophrenia in the future. Something is blocked. And what does it mean that something is blocked? It means that the subject has to be reopened to live. So there is a sort of presupposition, there is a sort of a priori of happening, and if you don't have the possibility for, because of the trauma, that something happened, it means that you have been closed on yourself. Exactly what Maldinet explained, and Bieswanger too, but not in the same sense, in fact, that in the case of Suzanne Urban, I don't know if you know the case of Suzanne Urban, who is very well known, a wife who became schizophrenic when she learned that her husband has got a cancer, was an illness. But in fact, Maldinet said she closed on herself. So my thesis in that book, and in the case of the crisis, which is the subject, is not that we are open and then we are closed and we have to be reopened. Because the idea of to be open has been destroyed in the case of a trauma. And I want to add that is not only in the case of the trauma, because we are always, we don't are open, but we have always to change. And my thesis is to say that we are always in transformation, what I call the hyper-transformation. And if some of you read my book, plus my book, Metamorphosis of Finitude, I am thinking, what does it mean, the metamorphosis? Not in the case of phenomenology of religion, which was a resurrection, but what does it mean, metamorphosis for the human being in the case of a trauma? So you have the a priori of the presupposition of the phenomenality, of the meaning, of the opening, and then you have the a priori of the event. We are always speaking about the event. Something will happen, and you have to be open of what will happen to you. Jocelyn Benoit wrote about Henri Maldinet, and that is absolutely right, that Henri Maldinet is the founder of the grammar of the event. And in fact, you can speak about French philology. All the French philology is a philology of the event. The giveness in Marion is an event. The face in Levinas is an event. The auto-affection in Michel Henry is an event too. The liturgy in Lacoste is an event, and so on. But what does it mean if no more event can happen? Because there is no more, because the condition for something happen are definitively destroyed. It doesn't mean that you need to live, to experience a trauma to say that. Because in fact, and that is the thesis of the book, we have all in ourselves what I call some sort of, how to say that, des trous, hole in a cavenas, des trous dans un tissu. And in fact, we are broke at the beginning of our life. We born as people who are blocked. What, in fact, Deleuze called the failure. So, in that way, and that is the second chapter of the book, which is exactly about this question of the crisis, we can't speak anymore about the gift, but we have to speak about what I call the resistance of the presence. And what does it mean, the resistance of the presence? It means that the resistance is first. What is first? Not the gift, and then I receive the gift, but what is first? The experience of resistance. Because there is something worse than the anguish of death. It is the horror of being. And it is the first Emmanuel Levinas, who is not the same as the second one, the Levinas of de l'existence à l'existant, the Levinas of du temps et l'autre, which is not the same as the Levinas of totality and infinity. The first Emmanuel Levinas, when he's speaking about the there is, about the il y a. And as Levinas said, at the beginning of his second preface of de l'existence à l'existant, a second preface he wrote during the 80s, about more than 30 years after the book. And he said that there is, il y a, is the center of this book and of his philosophy, but it is absolutely impossible to translate in French the Es gibt, the German Es gibt, by it is given. No, in fact, it is, I think, because it was written just after God Without Being of Marion. And I think that Levinas said, you can't say that you can translate Es gibt by cela donne in French. But in fact, Es gibt nothing. Il y a. And it is, of course, a very well-known example of insomnia. Because what happened in insomnia? That in the case of insomnia, I am encumbered by myself. I can't assume myself. So there is something which is worse than the anguish of death. Because in the case of the anguish of death in Heidegger, I am here, I'm thinking about my death, and I ask to myself the meaning of my life. But what is worse than the anguish of death? It is the horror to live, because the question of the horror to live is to ask to myself why I am always here, because I should prefer to not be here anymore. So the question of life in the question of crisis, which is the question of our conference, is not the question of life, it's the question of surviving. How is it possible to surviving? So what is a crisis? And this is the definition of the crisis I give in my book. The crisis is the fact to constate, to say that I am always still here when I should be dead or I should not to be there anymore. Why I am always here? Why are we always here in the situation of the pandemic? Why I am always here if I just live a separation with my wife or with your husband? Why I am always here if my son just died? So this question is the question of the extra phenomenon. What is the extra phenomenon? It is something which appeared to me, which broke all the condition of apparition of something. In that way, I criticize, I disagree with Levinas, and I agree with Blanchot, in fact, because Levinas made in Totality and Infinity a sort of deneutralization of the or phenomenon, a sort of deneutralization of the il y a. And it is exactly what Blanchot said to Levinas. Because Blanchot said it's important, who was a very good friend of Levinas, you know, but he disagreed with him when he said there is no deneutralization, for example, with the face of the other. Because we have to stay in the neutral to respect what a trauma means. Then, when we explain first chapter what is an extra phenomenon, and then when we explain the second subchapter what is a resistance of the presence, in the way where resistance is first and not the gift. Resistance because it is the horror to be there, and not only the anguish of death, the insomnia against the attempt of deneutralization. We arrive to this fundamental question, which is the question of l'impensable, the unthinkable. What does it mean, the unthinkable? Because what we are living now in the world with the pandemic is unthinkable. But when I say that it is unthinkable, it is not only because nobody thought about it before, but it is because it is completely outside of our categories. How someone, even the best scientists, even the best philosopher, could think that we will see Paris completely empty, New York completely empty, Rome completely empty. This is a sort of science fiction. No? So, what does it mean? The unthinkable. In my way, the unthinkable doesn't mean only, as Heidegger said, something we are not thinking, but that we will have to think. Heidegger said, ce qui donne le plus à penser, c'est que nous ne pensons pas encore. I think perhaps you all understand French. I don't know why I speak in English, but ce qui donne le plus à penser, c'est que nous ne pensons pas encore. What we give us much to think is the fact that we do not think anymore. Not more. Enfin, we have to think. But in fact, in the true case of unthinkable, we don't have to think something we didn't think before. But it is impossible to think anymore. What I said in French, I meant my Derrida, but it is, I didn't do it. I said dépenser. Alors, dépenser in English, it is to spend, so it doesn't work. But dépenser, do not think anymore. I can't think anymore, dépenser. Then the question is, do we have some example of this act of dépenser to recognize that it is not possible to think anymore? That is the unthinkable. For example, Husserl tried to explain it. And he spoke about the question of the chaos, about the possibility of the anéantissement du monde, the néantigestion of the world. You know that, as it is in the paragraph 58 of the Ideal One. But when he said that, he said, even if there is a sort of néantisation of the world, the ego will toujours rest to aim the chaos. So in fact, in Husserl, the chaos is never a chaos. Because I'm always here to viser, to aim the chaos. It is exactly the same in Heidegger. The course of Martin Heidegger in 1936 about Nietzsche is absolutely incredible. And there is a chapter about the question of the chaos. The title of the chapter is the concept of chaos. And in this chapter, Heidegger asked him, what does it mean, the chaos? And he's reading Nietzsche. And they said that there is two definitions of chaos. First definition, chaos is chaos in the current language, which is the disorder. It is not the philosophical meaning of chaos. And then you have the philosophical meaning of chaos, which is the opening. Kain in Greek. And he said, the true definition of chaos, you can find it in Hésiode. Au commencement naquit chaos, puis vint terrestriel. At the beginning, born chaos, then came worse and worse. But in fact, if you are reading Nietzsche, the reference of Nietzsche about chaos is absolutely not Hésiode. It is Anaxagore. And what Anaxagore said about chaos, absolutely not that the chaos is a sort of opening, exactly, in fact, as the Dasein is open to the world. But chaos is, alors, en français, c'est le pêle-mêle. Pêle-mêle. You think that in English it is a jumble. I don't know if you understand the jumble. I discovered this word. The chaos is a plenty.
Pell-mell as well. We say pell-mell.
Ah, good. Thanks, John. So, the chaos is a plenty. It is not le vide. There's a plenty. Something is chaos because it's a plenty. And in fact, what happened when a trauma happened to me? Not an opening, and not a closing too, ni l'ouverture, ni une fermeture. But I have plenty of what happened to me. It is what I call in the chapter 4 of my book, l'expansion de la psyché, the expansion of psyché. As Zhao said it, I wrote a book with my wife, which is the spirit. It has been translated in English because all my books are translated in English, except one, but all my own translate. And this book has been translated, the spirit body, le corps épandu. And what does it? What is the spirit body? I explain it because I did an experience, but not for me, but for a stage in palliative care. And the spirit body is a body between the extended body of Descartes and the lived body of Husserl. It means that the spirit body is the experience of the body, which is not only my own body, which is not only my lived body. It means that, for example, when I am sick, I can see my body as an object and not only as a subject. It is exactly the inverse of the phantom member in Merleau-Ponty. Because in the phantom member in Merleau-Ponty, Merleau-Ponty explained how is it possible that I feel a member that I don't have, a part of my heart. But me, it is the inverse. What does it mean? That I don't feel something I have. In the case of anesthesia, for example. So in that case, I can see my body as an object and not only as a subject. In that way, my body is not always my body. And I can't always say I am my body. In fact, I have a body. And in the case of illness, I don't say anymore I am my body, but I see I have a body. I have a tumor. In that case, in the case of the expansion of the psyche, what does it mean? It means that there is not only a spirit body, but there is a spirit thought, what I call la pensée épandue, in the case of the trauma. And what is the spirit thought, which is not only the spirit body, the spirit thought is the fact that my thoughtness, my pensée, can be sometimes as an object. For example, if you separate with your husband or with your wife, you are plenty of these events. And you can't think anymore. It means that you can't think anymore about anything else, but you can't think anymore because your possibility of thinking are broken. It's finished. So what is the chaos? The chaos doesn't mean that I am open to something. And the chaos doesn't mean that I am close to something. But the chaos means that I am plenty of myself because there is a sort of jumble in my head. In that way, in fact, it's not enough to say, as Husserl, that the other is another self, un autre soi-même, or that the other is other than oneself, un autre que soi-même. And it's not to say enough to say that I have to think myself as another, moi-même comme un autre, as Ricoeur said. Who I am for myself, what is the status of the subject? I'm not another self, not enough, or not only. I'm not only other than myself or oneself. I'm not only myself as another, but I am other to oneself. Je suis un autre à moi-même. I am a stranger for myself. In the case of the trauma, in the case of the hors phénomène, because nothing happened to me anymore, because the possibility for something happen are broken. It is what I call the desubjectivation. It is Spinoza gave a very significant example in the Ethics. It is example on Góngora. I don't know if you know the Spanish poet Góngora. The Spanish poet Góngora, said Husserl, said Spinoza. In fact, we think that he was ill because of Alzheimer. And Spinoza wrote, Góngora was absolutely not the same. He changed of his substance. He has no more identity. And I think that what Spinoza said about Góngora, it is exactly what we have to say. If a trauma happened to me, a true trauma, a separation, a death of a child, an illness, or perhaps a pandemic, I do not exist as myself. I can't say I anymore. In that way, le sujet est hors jeu. Hors jeu. And I write hors jeu in two ways in French. Hors jeu, outside of the ego, je, but hors jeu, outside of the game. You see that in French, no? Je and je. Ego and game. I am outside of me, I am outside of the game. Hors jeu. And if I am outside of me, outside of the game, I can't say I anymore. But does it mean that the subject is completely destroyed? Does it mean that it is a destruction of the subject, as Derrida said, or Foucault said? As absolutely not. Why absolutely not? And at the beginning, when I was writing my book, said, okay, there is a destruction. I said, not. Why? Because after the desubjectivation, you have the hypersubjectivation. And what does it mean, the hypersubjectivation? It means that my subject remains. And it is because my subject remains that I am in the impossibility to destroy the subject, except in the case of the society. So it is a case of insomnia. In the case of insomnia, I am not in a sort of desubjectivation, but I am in a sort of hypersubjectivation. Why an hypersubjectivation? Because I am encumbered by, I don't remember how to say that. How do you say that? Encombré. Oh, ça fait rien. Alexander, vous savez ça? Encombré. Oh, ça fait rien. I am full up of myself. Then, after the desubjectivation and the hypersubjectivation, what can I do? Nothing. Except that I will be transformed. A trauma, a crisis, a phenomenon will completely transform me. The metamorphosis is not only a word to speak about resurrection, as in my book, Metamorphosis of Finitude, but metamorphosis in a word to speak about human being in a case of hors phenomenon, of an extra phenomenon, which is not the infra phenomenon of Husserl, Heidegger, and Merleau-Ponty, and which is not the supra phenomenon of Marion, Levinas, Henri, and so on. So, in fact, the definition of human being in the case of crisis is metamorphose. But in the Kafkaian sense, meaning metamorphose exactly as Gregor Samsa. In the metamorphose, we change in concrela. Is as a concrela. Is not the same. It change of space, of space. Okay. So, and that is the chapter 5 with entitled Crisis, which is exactly the subject. What is a crisis we are speaking about? I said that the crisis is the fact that I am astonished of myself because I am still standing here when I should be dead or I should not be there anymore. There is a new leitmotif for me of the crisis, the phenomenological leitmotif. It is not the Heideggerian leitmotif, very well known in the chapter 7 of Being and Time, so much to appear, so much to appear, so much to be. I don't know. Autant d'être, non. Autant d'être, autant d'apparaître. So much to be, so much apparition. Hein? So much being, well, you know it. Hein? But it is no more the Jean-Luc Marion's leitmotiv dans Étant donné, which is autant de réduction, autant de donation. So much reduction, so much donation of givenness. What is my leitmotiv? It is not because I want to add a leitmotiv, because as I said in my book, we always want to add a leitmotiv, and to say that we are the last in phenomenology is never the case. But my leitmotiv is autant d'exception, autant de modification. So much exception, so much modification. It means that in the case of a crisis, so much exception because illness, the death of a child, a separation, a natural catastrophe, or a pandemic is an exception, of course. But so much exception, so much modification because I have no choice except to be transformed. Not to. I don't say that I have to make the choice to be transformed. I do no choice, but I am completely different, and in those cases, I can't recognize myself. And you know, but it is an experience. It is a human experience that when you are in illness, when you live a trauma. I remember the father of a child. I knew this child, and when he was 8, he died in a bicycle accident. I met his father 2 months after. He was not the same. And he was not recognized by the other, but he was not recognized by himself. And the question is not to say you have to reopen yourself, but to say that you will not reopen yourself. You will be completely different. In that way, and it is a point which is more debated in the book, because some people already wrote on the book, it is the fact that when you are in crisis, there is no therapy, no progress. Well, I'm not against the therapy. My wife is psychoanalyst, as you know. Joao knows that, she knows Sabine. My mother too. Perhaps it is why I wrote a book on Freud. But I'm not against the psychoanalytic therapy. But in the case of the Or phenomenon, we don't have to speak too fast, too easy about the therapy and the progress. Because if you say that, you will think that you have to be like that. For example, when a doctor of medicine said that he's no more sick, he is no more sick anymore, it means that he's become better. Now he came back in his family, he came back in his job, and so on. But what is it? It is a form of sociality. What Nietzsche called the gregary instinct, l'instinct grégaire. So it's not sure that we have to presuppose what does it mean for human being to be open, for human being to be good. And perhaps Nietzsche was never open or good, but with his genius, he made an œuvre. It is the same for Antonin Artaud, it is the same for Van Gogh, and so on. In fact, we are always in an adolescent crisis. When I say that we are always in an adolescent crisis, it is not to say that, oh, he is in this adolescent crisis, but after he will be. No, the adolescent crisis is this time of our life when we are completely changed and we don't know what we will become. And it is what it is so worrying for the parents, because what he will do is in its adolescent crisis, is in complete transformation. So, in fact, because of the trauma, in the case of the extra phenomenon, which is not the infra phenomenon and the supra phenomenon, we are living what I call around the hole, autour du trou. We have some hole in our life, some hole on a canvas, des trous sur un tissu. As a cigarette, we make some hole. But it is impossible to descend, to go in the chaos. Because if I go in this chaos, if I go in this hole, I will be completely destroyed. So, what can I do? Je ne peux que contourner le trou. I can go only around the hole. But not because the hole is a mystery, not because the hole is a secret, not because solitude is a mystery, because the last chapter is about solitude, solitude or loneliness. Not because loneliness is a mystery, not because loneliness is a secret, but because loneliness is a core, what I call the core of solitude. Because what happened when I live the trauma and when the subject is broke, but not completely broke, because he's always there, when the subject is broke, in sort of nothing can appear to him because the phenomenalized origin disappear. But in that case, I am living only in my loneliness. I am completely different of myself, and there is no more resiliency. So in that book, I'm completely against the resiliency. I repeat, I am completely against the resiliency. And we are always speaking about the resiliency. Even the French president said that the France has to be resiliency in front of the COVID. But what does it mean, this imperative, this leitmotif of resiliency? It means that if you fall, if something falls on you, no problem. Even if you're doing sport and so on, but you have to make the proof that you are in resiliency. You have to make the proof that you have the capacity of rebondir, to bounce, to get up, to make it out. But in my thesis, we never get up. We never make it out the crisis. Because you will never make it out the death of your child. You will never make it out of your separation. You will never make it out of your illness. So, no resiliency. So, I said, if there is no resiliency, we can have what I call in French, la portance et la contenance. Non pas la résilience, mais la portance et la contenance. What is the portance? the where brands. It is like a plane on the air. You are like a plane on the air on your trauma, and la contenance, it is not the capacity, it is a limitation for you not explode. So there is no resiliency in front of the trauma, but you are only in a sort of portance, remembrance, and contenance. Then, what does it mean, the réel? Qu'est-ce que c'est que le réel? In all French phenomenology, in all French philosophy, the réel is defined by this formula, in fact, which is coming from Maldinet, criticized Heidegger. Le réel, c'est ce qu'on n'attendait pas. The real is what we weren't expecting. Alors, of course, in that way, Maldinet criticizes Heidegger because Heidegger, when Heidegger is speaking about the Dasein is open to the world. And then the word can appear to the Dasein. But I'm not surprising about what happened. I'm just the one who can welcome what happened. And the one who says that I have to be surprising by what happened, it is, for example, Levinas, but the face of the other, because I was not waiting for the other, and the other overcome to me. But for me, the definition of the real can't be anymore ce qu'on n'attendait pas, what we weren't expecting. Why? Because we never expect a trauma. But when a trauma happens, it breaks our capacity of accepting, of expecting. We do not expect anything because we do not have the capacity of expect anything. That's why, for example, when you live the separation with your husband, with your life, or between two people, you need a very, very, very long time to expect for something new happen. You have to live a very long time to be open, but I don't say to be reopened, but to accept that you are definitively someone different. So the definition of the real for me is not ce qu'on n'attendait pas, but what Jacques Lacan, I'm not a Lacanian, but on that point I am Lacanian, Jacques Lacan told l'inassimilable, the unassimilable. The unassimilable, it means that the real is something, it's not something that can happen, that I can expect. The real is in front of me and impossible to assimilate. In that case, we can't speak anymore, in the case of the trauma, about the fact that the trauma is a sort of negation, of a sort of privation, as if the trauma, as said Maldinet, is a sort of privation of the opening. I was open. Suzanne Urban was open. Then, when she knew that her wife was sick, she closed on herself. But in fact, she didn't close on herself. She became someone completely different. It is exactly, in fact, what Ludwig Binswanger said. And when Maldinet is speaking of Binswanger, is not the same, because Binswanger said that in the case of a psychose, of a psychosis or psychotic, he said it is a nouvelle existentielle power, a new puissance existentielle. So the question is no more, as we are always saying after Pandar, to say, deviens qui tu es, become who you are. Because if you say become who you are, it means that you are someone and you have only to actualize what you are, who you are. But you have to inverse the Pandar's proposition and to say, not deviens qui tu es, but sois qui tu deviens. Be who you become. Be who you become. It means that you don't know who you are. And you will see who you will be only in your history. It is exactly the meaning of the Eye Asher Eye, or the Ego Sum Qui Sum in the Liber of Exodus 3:14, when Yahweh said, become who, no, be who you become. And it is exactly what happened for us in the case of the trauma. So I conclude to say that, in fact, in front of this real, or before this real, what I have to do, I have to try to do some new possibilities, to make some new possibilities. Il s'agit de faire son possible. Exactly what Kierkegaard said in La maladie à la mort. Hein? Du possible, sinon j'étouffe. Some possible, or I will suffocate. You know that. But what does it mean, du possible? It means that I have to do the possible. I have to do my possible. I don't have to open some possibilities that I had before. But because of the crisis, I have to create new possibilities. It means that in that case, autrement est possible, otherwise is possible. So to conclude, and it is about the last chapter about the original loneliness, in fact, we are always alone. We are always alone. And there is a sort of a priori of alterity in phenomenology too. But not only in phenomenology because you need the other, in theology because you need God, in psychology, in pedagogy, you need the other. And you, if you are not open to the other, your life is finished. But in fact, we confused the question of loneliness, solitude, with the question of the solitaire and the solipsism. It's not the same. What is the solitude? Solitude is what we are, what I call the core of loneliness. And what does it mean, a core of loneliness? It means that solitude is not a mystery. Solitude is not a secret. What does it mean? It means if solitude was a mystery, if solitude was a secret, it should mean that, okay, I experienced a trauma. I lost my child. I experienced a trauma. I am completely ill. I will die. I experienced a trauma. I separate with my husband. I experienced a trauma. I am in a pandemic. This pandemic put me in an incredible situation. I am in a trauma because of the natural catastrophe and my house destroyed, and so on and so on. But in that way, I am always alone. Nobody can help you. Nobody. And we have to recognize that we are alone in our trauma. Nobody, it's not a secret. And loneliness is not a secret because nobody will share what you are living. So what does that mean? It doesn't mean that the other does not exist. But it means that the other is just à côté, near me, but not with me. What I call l'accotement d'autrui. Exactly what said Heidegger about the anguish of death. The other can, l'autre peut m'accompagner dans la mort, être présent à côté, mais jamais être là avec moi dans la mort. It is exactly the same. There are some holes of solitude, des trous de solitude. I can only go around those holes. Je peux seulement contourner ces trous. And the other is here, à côté de moi, near me. But what does it mean in that case? Love. Love exists. But the definition of love in my book is the bond, le lien, the vinculum, exactly as Blondel said after Leibniz. What is the vinculum? It is the fact that we are, it is my thesis, a strange one. We are linked with the other by our impossibility to share what we are. We are not linked with the other because we share everything. We are linked with the other because it's impossible to share what you live. In that case, for example, we are a couple. We lost a child. I will have a core of solitude in myself, a core. And it's impossible to me to know what is in me about that event. And it is the same for my wife. And it is the same for the other. It means that solitude is this all in myself, which is impossible for me to penetrate. And what is love? Love is the link of me and the other with this impossibility to communicate, this impossibility to share, not the impossibility to share because we have to speak to share, not the impossibility to share because it is a sort of negative theology, not the impossibility to share because the act of sharing on that point is absolutely impossible. So at the beginning was a link. It is a translation of the Gospel of John. Au commencement était le verbe, enarché au logos. And what is the logos? The logos at the beginning in the Greek language, it is a link. And after we say un rapport, a link. Then we have what I call in French l'inaccessible en commun. And it is only if we recognize what we have in common, it means the fact that we have things which are inaccessible, that I can love you. You know that I know that I have something in me which is inaccessible. And perhaps because we live something very hard between us, in separations. I have something in me which is absolutely inaccessible as a core. There is something in you which is absolutely inaccessible for yourself. And it is impossible for me to access to what is inaccessible for you. And it is impossible for you to access to what is inaccessible for me. But we love ourselves in our common inaccessibility. It is not for the young people who are just married. It is for the people, for me, as me, who are married since more than 30 years. It means that I don't know my wife, but there are many things in my wife that I will never know. And there are many things in me that she will never know, but we can love together because we don't know what we will each other never know. What is love? Love is the link between two loneliness. That's why the loneliness is not only original, but original. Not original, but original, originaire. In fact, we are always in loneliness. Perhaps there is an exception, and it is the next book that I would like to write in philosophy of religion about the Holy Saturday. Because what is, I wrote a book on the only Thursday, one on the only Friday, one on the only Sunday, resurrection, passion, but the only Saturday is this moment when Christ came to my trauma, not only to be near me, but with me. Emmanuel. And perhaps it is the exception of the resurrection. The exception of the resurrection that is the fact that Christ, and only the Christ himself, is able to be with me in my trauma. And by why my trauma? Because of corruptibility. In fact, the Holy Saturday is corruptibility, not only in the meaning or in the sense of sin, because it is the Holy Friday, but the sense of corruptibility of the trauma. And I can say that I began to work about the Or phenomenon because of a theological reason. Because my question about, so I prepare my book about the Holy Saturday is ready since 6 years. I have the outlet and so on. But my question was, what Christ is doing? Where is he coming? And then I think he's coming in my trauma and everything changed. I finish by this magnific definition of love in Rainer Maria Rilke, the letter to young poetry. I read it, I translate it. Love is to loneliness that leans each other and congratulate each other. L'amour, c'est deux solitudes qui se penchent l'une vers l'autre et qui se congratulent. Je vous remercie.
Merci Emmanuel. Très grand merci.